Alright, so we're finally back. We're in a new place, if you can tell acoustically or by some of the noises, which I'm sorry, I don't know if they're going to be able to pick up or not, certain noises. Not much I can do at the moment, but, we are at Utica U now, so kind of reporting on the hockey team from the campus now. And you'll probably, anyone who watches the 315 Hockey Live podcast, which I don't know if it's still going to be called that this year, because for those who don't know, Vermi kind of paused it for now, because I know he's been reffing a lot. So it looks like between that and family and other things, he's kind of stopping that for now. And then Scotty picked up his own kind of thing, so, which I'm glad. I mean, it's sad to see 3-5 hockey do a pause, but I'm glad Scotty just picked up and kind of continued, and it's nice to see, and I'm excited for the future of both, and we'll see how that goes, because I don't know what the future holds. I haven't really talked much about, all I know is I'm coming back this year for the new year of covering 3-5 area. That's all I know. I don't know anything else. But we're gonna. So you can probably tell by the title. I'm doing another look at kind of the schedule, but this is more who's on the. What are the teams Utica's playing losing, and kind of a little bit of how they match up. And obviously, I'm gonna go over this a little bit, like right before the season starts, and during the season, when teams come up like when we play them the week of, I'll have my videos and et cetera, et cetera. But this is just a big coverage of I lined all the seniors up according to each team's respective websites, and just picked out a couple guys that may have top 5 scoring lines or started as goalies or even just some names I remember, among other things. And kind of going over how many guys certain teams are losing, will this impact them, how will this impact them, etc., etc. So obviously, Utica plays their first game against the U18 USA development team. Now with the USA development team, I think it's a lot of turnover usually year by year. So I mean, they're always good. And now we kind of know a little bit more about who's coming to Utica. Guys like Herrera from the Junior Comets, and guys like like the 5 Canadians that got announced early. Vital, Gabe. I want to say it's Lundberg. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I'm there's so many different people I talk about with Lund in the beginning of their name between the Rangers and this and blah 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 that I kind of get messed up from time to time. But it's all, I mean, USA team is really good. I mean, even if we stuck in with them for two and a half periods, I'd be happy. Especially if, like, Lanzi comes out, has a great game, and only lets a couple in on a team that's super skilled. Oh, I'm fine with that. Especially with the guys in front of him that he has right now that are unexperienced. I'm good with a decent loss, because that'll be tough. I'll be the first one to say we're probably not gonna win that game, but you never know. Gary has a system. He knows that system well. He knows the guys he's getting well. You never truly know. Sometimes with hockey, it's an any given day sport. Most of the time, so you never truly know until it happens. I mean, it's like college football or college basketball. Any given day, a team can walk in and beat another team. It's usually with every sport. I mean, with pros, it's kind of different, but in college, usually, unless even if it's a very small school like a UMBC, when they were the first 16 seed to beat a 1 seed. I think that was against Virginia, if I remember correctly, that year. I don't know. I might be mixing up the year after. For any basketball fans out there, or I mean, we've seen in the Frozen Four, number 1 teams get knocked off. I mean, didn't North Dakota get knocked off last year early? I think Michigan the year before this year got knocked out earlier than they wanted to be. And then I think this year they lost in the Frozen Four to Minnesota, I want to say. I don't remember, but I remember, not Frozen Four, but I remember them losing to, I think, Minnesota. And so it's on any given day, but I don't know if I see it right now. And I think that'll be the game where it's like, oh, we're just kind of building everything in game speed because you're building the foundation for the season, and you may have the chemistry in practice, but in game's different. We saw it last year, and that was a team that was mostly together for years. They had chemistry issues for the first couple games. It's just how it goes. It's the way of the game. You can't get around it at times. It's just how it is. You got to deal with it. And then to follow that, Utica has their old friend Adrian. I hate Adrian. I really do. But I get why Gary scheduled him. I get it. And looking at Adrian, they're losing a large number of guys. They are losing a double-digit amount. They're losing 10. Yeah, they're losing 10. So, with them losing 10, they are losing... I really didn't list. They are losing one of their goalies next to Larico, who had a 14-4 record, 2.5 GAA, and a 905 save percentage. They're losing Marcus Spaniak, 30, 28, 55 goals, assists, points. Sam Ruffin had 11 goals, 23 assists, 34 points. Alessio Lisciani had 15, 25, and 40. And Ty Ennis had 21, 29, and 50. And those are just the guys that had stat lines that stuck out. And I mean, I remember Ennis. I remember Tellerico. I somewhat remember Spaniak. And they're losing some talent up high in their forward roles. And all in all, they're losing some good talent. So, Adrian could do a Geneseo and take a half a step back, or even a full step back. I don't know how that's going to look. I think they're going to be a little shaky at the beginning of the season, so I think this could be a decent matchup for UC if they come out swinging and Gary gets the guys really fired up. Anything's possible. And then Stevenson. Again, we have a lineup of Adrian Stevenson back-to-back. Stevenson gave UC a run last year. Both games were 4-3 over. I think one was 4-3 overtime win, one was a 4-3 regulation win. But Stevenson's only losing 4 guys. I mean, they are losing Ryan Kenny, who went 13-8-1, so that means he played 22 games. He had a .929 save percentage and allowed 2.22 goals per game on average, or GAA, whatever you want to call it. And then Anthony Sturtsy, who was somewhat high in points. Starzy, not Sturzy. I read that as a U. And then Austin Master, who was their point leader their assist leader with 22 and their point leader with 38. So they're losing a little bit, but they're only losing 4 guys. So I have a feeling Stevenson's going to be a tough team this year. I mean, they were a tough team last year. So they're definitely going to be that team that competes for one of those top 4 UCHC spots, even top 3. And then following that, you have Chatham University, who lost, 7-8? Now, they are losing Andrew Warhoftig. I always put the T in the wrong place. I specifically remember him because we picked him out in the Chatham game both times. They were good on the power play. They were really good on the power play. And that's mostly what I remember them for. They lose Warhoftig, who was tied for first in points on the team, was 4th in assists and 2nd in points with 13, 12, and 25 respectively. They lose Ricardo Gonzalez, who was their starting goaltender, 12, 7, and 2, 291 GAA, and a 912 save percentage. And then they lose Gerdukis, too, who he wasn't high on their assist numbers, but he had some. And him I specifically remember as, a defenseman? big guy. I remember being a big body, a physical body. So they are losing a few. They're losing their starting goaltender. So I think time will tell what they have behind him, and the goalie is going to kind of be a make or break there potentially for Chatham. Although again, time will tell. Plus, with having these teams early, that's a benefit. Following that is Wilkes. Now, Wilkes loses 8-2. They lose Ben Stefanini, who was their point leader or was their goal leader and second in points with 13 goals, 20 points. And then they lose Phil Erickson, who was tied fifth in points tied fifth in assists and fifth in points with 9 assists, 15 points. So again, another team losing a few. If they can replace them, they're going to be probably. I think they were a mid-pack team last year. I think they're looking to become mid-pack team to top 4, top 3. Can they do that? I don't know. I mean, they are returning some good players. So I mean, we will see. They're returning. Although I don't think they scored very much, they're returning some of their higher scorers. I will say that. Then you have St. John's. Now, St. John's is losing 9. And they're losing their leading assist getter, who is also second in points and second in goals. And that is Augie Moore with 8 goals, 16 points, or 16 assists, 24 points. And then they're also losing Peter Tabor, who was third in assists on the team, 2-12-14. St. John's, we don't have really a good picture of in terms of how they're going to match up to UC, because I think they're D2 club. That's one that we may not truly know until they come into town. I don't know what to expect. I mean, they're probably going to be good. So we'll see how that game goes. That is the Thanksgiving Showcase game. So you may see a young and inexperienced UC team take a loss there. I will say, though, if Elmira wins the Oswego State game, that's a little... It's not... That'll be interesting. Because it's Elmira Oswego State. Now, Oswego State we'll get to later because they do play them guaranteed later down the road anyways. But Elmira's losing 7. They're losing their tied third point getter and their second assist getter, or second place assist getter in Jake Russo with 4, 12, 16. And then behind him in assists and tied with him in points is Brendan Schultz with 6, 10, 16. So, and they also lose one goalie, but I think he was more of a backup goalie, and that's Jeffrey 0, 3, 4, and 1, 904 save percentage, and a 309 GAA. Alright, so jumping Oswego State until they come back up, which will be after this, you have Stonehill. Stonehill only lost 5 guys. They lost one of the guys who was top 5 in points, specifically 5th, and that's Brendan Namer, 9, and he was also 3rd in goals, 9, 6, 15. And they also lose John Day, who it seems like kind of shared the starting role, or at least had a kind of a 1A, 1B, or maybe a something close to that, because he was 7-3-1, had a 409 and a .889 save percentage, which isn't good. But yeah, they're a D1 team in purgatory, but they're going to be really good, so they're really going to push UC to the limit and probably set a bar. And then, who knows, UC can beat it, hopefully. And then swinging back around to Oswego State, who follows them up. That time is still to be determined on the website. And that's December 9th. That's the last game before the December break of hockey, which kind of makes me sad. I don't like talking about it because then I lose all the momentum of hockey, and then I'm like, what am I gonna do now? So, Oswego State lost 7. They lost a top 5. They lost 2 top 5 point getters and their top scorer. So they lose Tommy Cahill, who was 2nd in goals, tied 3rd in points, or tied 3rd in assists, 3rd in points, 10, 12, 22. And they lose Alex DiCarlo, who is their leading goal getter and leading point scorer and also second in assists with 13, 14, and 27. So they're losing a few, and they are they're I don't know where they're gonna be. They were mid-pack. No, well, they were mid-pack top 25, I'd argue, last year. I mean, they walked in and got stomped in the teddy bear toss, which everyone coming into that game, they're like, oh, they're going to be really good. They're going to force us to play good, blah, blah, blah. They're going to set the bar high. And while I admit they did play good physical hockey, and they pushed UC around a little, once UC found it, they never lost it again. And they just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and Oswego State could not keep up. And I think they kind of drained after that first goal or second goal. Because the first goal, it took so long to get those teddy bears off the ice, and I think after that break, it was kind of like the UC came back rejuvenated, and you watch Oswego State kind of, oh, they got it. They got their energy booster. And then another one went in, and then another one, and then they kind of died. They were kind of dead on arrival at that point. Following them, you have Manhattanville after the December break, which, wow, that is a big drop in players. 13. I think that's the either highest or second highest of a team UC plays this year that is losing players. Nope, that is the highest amount of players that a team is losing. Among players, they are losing Tyler Roy, who UC fans, he didn't really play them last season, but they will remember him from the season before from the playoff game, where he looks like he's in his 30s. He took off his helmet, and then 103 started telling him to put it back on, and started a balding chant. I still have that video of the balding chant. I think it's in my hype video for last year. I don't know, but I know I have the video. I know I have the video hiding on my computer, but I love that. I love that moment. You know, I will always remember that. That is what reminds me. That's what he reminds me of now when I hear Manhattanville. So he went 2-6, 3.99 GAA, and an 8.99 save percentage. So he didn't really play much last year, even though he was the senior guy. They chose the freshman who saw time last year against UC and didn't fare too much better, but that was also a loaded UC team at the time. They also lose Dylan Pollock, who went 4-11-15. Hayden Taylor, who was tied third in goals, 8-7-15 stat line. And then Mason Emoff, who was their top point getter, second in goals, and third in assists with 11, 13, and 29, respectively. Now, I remember Emoff, too, because the Herd would target them relentlessly, and I was right behind them targeting them, too. Because they would sometimes they'd just pick a player and just go and push. And usually with that, I was like that one who was just going after somebody else, because they usually have them, but that one I remember, I was like, you know, I watched him make a hit that I didn't like. There might have been a missed call. So I think I went after him with him. And I think it was the guy 2 years ago that squirted water at the Herd and got him super amped up. Which, that's the last thing you do. You don't acknowledge they're there. Because when you acknowledge they're there, all of a sudden, you just made an issue. A lot bigger. And they're coming here this year for 2 games. Plus, if we see them in the UCHC, if Utica makes it, which they should, yeah, that'll be fun. Because I love hating Manhattanville. There's a reason it's a rivalry game. I hate them. Simple as that. And then to follow that, you have Newman, who lost 3 guys. 3 guys. I think that's the smallest number. I think 3 and 4 are the 2 smallest numbers that are being lost, and I think there's 3 or 4 teams losing that much. So Newman loses, among other players, they lose their third best guy in terms of assists, which is Nate Dunning, which he had a 4-14-18 stat line. 4 goals, 14 assists, 18 points. So not bad. And he was also 5th in goals and 4th in points, so he's up there. But Newman could be a good team if they take a big step forward. They could get to a level that's kind of similar to Naz, where they come out of nowhere. But it all depends. It'll always depend on how the development looks. Follow that, you have Lebanon Valley losing 5 guys. Lebanon Valley got absolutely hosed last year. Absolutely destroyed. Now, coming back in, they're different, but... Well, not different, but they're not losing much. But again, I think they're going to get destroyed again this year. They do lose one of their top scorers in Brad Viola. Was tied first in goals with 7. He had 5 assists, and it was third in points, and the team with 12. So they lose a few guys, not much, but if anyone was a leader in that locker room that they lost, that's a dent, and that goes for every team on the list. And then following them, you have Naz with a home and away. We've done this the last few years. It's nothing new that we have a home and away. I wanted to go out to that game, but I think there's a tournament that weekend. I wanted to go out there too. I might try to. But Naz loses 7, which is another common number. Either 7, 8, 9 for the teams that are losing a few. 3 or 4 for the teams losing a little bit, and then double digits for like 2 teams. So Naz loses their top assist getter and point getter in the same guy in Henry McKinney, third in goals, first in points and assists with 10, 27, and 37. And then they lose Michael Deshavi. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Who was third in assists and fifth in points, 1, 14, and 15. Obviously not top 10 in goals. Or 5, which the first one I picked like top 10 and the rest I just said, if they're top 5, I'll point out your stat lines. But yeah, they're losing a few. After that, you have King's College. Now, everybody from King's to Alvernia to Arcadia, 5, 4, and 3, they're all losing, so it's all low numbers. Kings is losing Tyler Sager, 4-5 and 1 record, 308 GAA, and a .929 save percentage. This is the team that took almost 100 shots from UC when they set the record last year. I hope they do it again. I hope they take over 90 shots in a game. I want to hit 100 this year. I really do, just because I think that would be awesome, because we got robbed last year because they kind of stopped shooting after 90. I think the record's now 93, 94. It was between 92 and 94, but I think it was on the higher end of that. So I think he was playing a backup role more than a starting role, so that won't affect them too much, and I don't lose anyone who's really top in scoring. So there's that. Alvernia is the next team. Now, Alvernia are losing a few decent pieces. They lose their top assist getter, was also second in points, and tied third in goals, and that is Logan Van de Marakker. Sorry if I said that wrong, with 7, 15, and 22. And then they lose the guy who was fifth in goals on the team, which is Peter Falavenia. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I've said that 8 times already. Who had a 6, 6, and 12 stat line. And then they also lose goalie Colin Kane, who had a 3, 5, and 2 record, 8.44 save percentage, and a 3.83 GAA. So obviously, again, another goalie that really played a backup role. That one's not a big loss, but losing the other 2 does hurt a little bit for Alvernia, because I think they were a low scoring team too, and I think so was Arcadia. And speaking of Arcadia, they lose only 3. They lose their fifth, the guy who was tied 5th in assists, and they lose a decent goalie. They lose Brett Schneider, who was 4, 7, 11 stat line, and they lose Fletcher Bolda, who I do remember from at least playing once in UC, in Utica. And he had a 3.72 record, a 4.62 GAA, and an 8.95 save percentage. So I think that may have been a 1A, 1B situation. It kind of looked like it when I looked around in Arcadia. So if they have their next starter, or their 1B take a step, or 1A take a step, whatever the rules are there, whoever isn't leaving, take that one spot completely. You'll probably see him. You're probably going to see him against UC this year. I wouldn't be surprised. And they are home again against UC Arcadia, because I think they were here 3 times last year. So I think they're playing here again. That's funny. I think they're one of the few. Them are one of the few teams that isn't swapping this year. I mean, obviously Naz is a special case, but I mean, teams that came here aren't coming here, and that aren't coming here or didn't come here are coming here now. So it kind of flipped, which that's why it was a low number last year, but a high number 2 years ago, and now it's back to a high. And then next year it'll go to a little lower, and the next year it'll come back to a little higher. It's kind of like an over/under thing. One time you're over in terms of home more than the way, and then you swap, and then you swap again, and then you just keep going. But it's always how the schedule falls. So obviously I'm going to keep this list on me for when the podcasts start back up, which should be soon. At least the one with Scotty, and then after that, once that starts up, I think I'll pick up the other ones. At least hockey, I'll pick up the high score after that. After that podcast picks up, and then obviously I'll pick up like my Birds one this hopefully next weekend. With the season starting, I'll pick up ND hopefully when the season starts, because my big project was the ND hype video, which just got out. So I mean, we'll see. We'll see how acoustics go too. I'm gonna have to work out how I'm gonna have this mic when I do podcasts, because I can't stand up, and I want to figure out a nice backdrop. I don't know how I'm gonna do that. I'll figure it out at some point, but I mean, we'll see. I can't wait. I'm excited for the season, and we'll get once the recruiting class hopefully gets out, then I can really talk about them. But anyways, you know who I am. I'll see you later with more content, I guess.